Hi, my name is Gloria Urban, and I am from Toledo, Ohio. Actually, I'm from Oregon, which is right outside of Toledo. But anyhow, while I am unloading my dishwasher and cleaning my kitchen, I am listening to the Two Trees podcast, and today you are listening to the Two Trees podcast also. Please enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Rose. If the Two Trees has been a blessing to you, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcast, or visit our website, www.thetwotreespodcast.org, and click the yellow Buy Me a Coffee icon to leave a donation. And now, let's join the conversation.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Two Trees podcast. I'm John Dillon, and I'm here with my friend in real life, but not on Facebook, Rosemary Moeller.
Hello.
And the golfer par excellence. That's what they call golfers in France.
Oh, actually, I get it, par.
Yeah, par. See what I did?
Cool.
Martin Listener.
Hey, y'all. I'm just wondering how long we're going to run with this whole Facebook friend joke.
I'm done.
I plan to die with it.
I'm
actually.
done.
To be honest, I think we got a good couple of years left at least.
Yeah, I'm not over it.
You know, I was on Facebook this week, sometime recently, because
How? You didn't have any friends.
you can just search stuff. That's how I do it.
That sounds
It's
awful.
probably clunky, but it works because I search for our page.
Good words there, Rose. Yeah.
Can't remember what it was called, just to see what people were saying, and it was kind of fun.
Do you feel invisible? Like, is that why you did it?
It is. It's like having the cone of silence around me whilst I snoop around on
I
our
feel
own
like
Facebook
it's like
page.
you're in the CIA. Like nobody can see you, but you can see everything. Right?
That's
Like
exactly what social media does to people, which is why I don't engage.
There you have it.
Anyway, I'm offended, is what I'm trying to say. But Martin and I are still cool. So anyway, Martin, give us our sponsor for today.
Yes, today's sponsor. Another really good one. I mean, I'm very proud to be able to talk to this individual and have him sponsor the podcast. I mean, it's amazing what you can get when you just really network with these types of people and go out there and put yourself out there. It's amazing who will respond to you. So today's sponsorship or today's episode is brought to you by Samson's Shampoo. Samson's Shampoo adds body volume and mostly strength.
Mostly strength. I like
I
it.
get it.
I'm not sure if you're supposed to be talking to him on account of his being dead.
And the whole Witch of Endor.
Yeah, I don't know. We may need to talk about that later.
All right.
Anyway, Rose, people have been leaving us really nice reviews for a long time, and we wanted to highlight those just to let you guys know that we appreciate them. And anytime that you have something to say, we will read it. So, Rose, will you give us today's
This
review?
is from our friend Nikos Martinez, and this one's a little older, but he says, I enjoy the crew when they dig into the word and get their hands dirty. I like how they bring the ancient Near East background alive in a simple and fascinating way.
It is good to be fascinating.
Yeah.
I hope to ascend to that one day, but this person is kind enough to say so, so we hope we don't let them down.
They also said get your hands dirty, and we never really get our hands dirty. But this whole season is about, bridging the cultural gap.
No, yeah.
And it's just an idea of like how we speak, and it makes sense to us, but probably didn't make sense to the people that were reading the Bible or
Yeah,
were in
that
the
would have
Bible.
been an expression that maybe they didn't understand
And
so much.
honestly, can we talk for a minute how beautiful the weather is today? Speaking of getting our hands dirty, it is
Fantastic.
like the best day to work outside in your
Yeah,
yard.
my wife has taken the week off to tell me things I need to do.
And you are doing those things.
I am doing those things. So far, I am on a roll, and our life is better for it.
It's only Monday.
Yes, I may sing a different song tomorrow, but right now things are going really good. But let's continue our discussion of bridging that gap between the ancient world. The early Iron Age, late Bronze Age world is quite a bit different than our world today, but there are a lot of things that are similar. And so if I, as a reader, want to pick up my Bible and just read, you are going to be able to understand way more than you think you are. And so if you're the kind of person who doesn't want to get started until like you're an expert in something, you're doing yourself a disservice, because the Holy Spirit inspired the Bible and it can be understood regardless of how much ancient culture you have in your back pocket. But the more of that ancient culture you begin to tuck away in your mind, you're going to begin noticing kind of like Easter egg kind of moments. You're like, oh, I see there's extra depth here, or I can see a little clearer what the author was trying to say. And that's because there actually is a very real ancient audience that was intended to be the recipient of these books.
It's an interesting thing that you bring that up, because I was just talking with my in-laws a couple of days ago, and they were asking about if, you hear sermons about a certain topic very often. And I'm like, not really, but the topic was very difficult to, preach from the pulpit. But it's something that's very important to get to know, because then you can have a better understanding of what Jesus was doing. And so like that's what you're mentioning is, it's one thing to just breeze through the Bible and get the life of Jesus, but the more that you understand the background and the reasons why things are happening, the more it's going to come alive for you. So do you need to know all that? Does your pastor need to be preaching everything all the time? No. But you're doing your own studies and your own Bible studies and whatnot, and that's where you can really dig into this information and then utilize it to better understand what the Bible's telling you.
Yeah, and so I kind of have a problem with the way that many Christians view their Bible. There's this Old Testament part where God was really cranky and angry, and we just kind of flip through that. It's got some nice stories of some nice people, but let's get to the New Testament part. But the Old Testament is also for you. It's the majority of the Bible, and so if you're only reading your New Testament, you're dropping into a conversation halfway. And so don't be afraid to read your Old Testament. And if there are things that don't make sense to you, that shouldn't turn you off. That should pull you in, because you want to understand it more. You want to think about it. And what we've really been talking about as far as bridging the culture gap here at the beginning of the season is really about imagery. How did ancient people talk about big ideas? And we've found actually pretty quickly, just in our own studies and trying to get prepared to talk to you guys, that even today, with the English language having bukus of words, we don't actually have enough words to talk about all the things that the Bible is discussing. We fall flat, and we're left kind of doing similes and metaphors, trying to explain what we mean. Ancient people had the same problem. They're trying to talk about ideas that are bigger than language. And in many ways, they're talking about things that humanity knows are true, but we don't have the ability to touch them, see them. The supernatural world isn't something that exists in the same way that the physical world does.
Do you think the lack of the ability to communicate it is because of the fall, because of the garden? Like, did God create us with the inability to be able to discuss these things?
No, I'll give you a John Dylanism that I said in one of our very early episodes. Actually, Rose, this is you. We hadn't discovered your talents yet.
So now I have something to learn, because you're going to tell it to me.
So what we may have actually talked about it just in general, but when Adam and Eve notice that they are naked, I believe that at that point, Adam and Eve are only operating in the physical world.
Right.
That before that, they had the ability to perceive the spiritual world. And so in many ways, humanity is operating with our senses dead and dulled to the total extent of creation. I'll never make this part of my creed, like everyone has to believe this. It's something that I think is occurring. And I do love a good rabbit trail, so that's what I think.
It's just unique that the people of the Bible had the same problem that we do. We can't put into words what we either inherently know is true or have experienced in certain aspects of our life to be this supernatural touch that is upon this physical world. And yet they did it with a bunch of imagery that we've gone over with the water and today the stars and all of this stuff. And we seem to be trying to do the same thing now. It's just everybody has more flavor with it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, is flavor. Because remember, God is speaking to people in ways that they can understand. God repurposes the images and the ways of speech and communication that are common all across the Bronze Age world and the Iron Age world. and he communicates to people, having an earthquake or a thunderstorm, like with Samuel, when he has the moment where Saul is crowned. Everyone is supposed to remember that God is God. He does this with a thunderstorm. That would have meant a lot more to a people who were used to thinking of thunder gods as a very real part of the world, whereas today we would just be like, oh, bad luck, it's raining, because we are a people who are far more focused on the scientific explanations. Sure. And they were a people that were much more focused on the stories. And really what I'm excited to talk about this topic today because it bridges both of these ideas.
So where does the line be drawn between story imagery and superstition?
Oh, that's a really good question. I suppose all stories can be superstition. And it comes down to, do you think God is explaining science to you, or is God trying to tell you something about himself? And we live in a world which is addicted to things like exploration. We want to explore space. We want to explore the sea. There's something inside of me that wants to know what is at the bottom of this pit or around this corner. I like going to state parks and exploring. I like going to new rivers and fishing because I want to know what's next. And so we've been taught since childhood to really put an emphasis on this because it has vastly improved our existence here on the earth. When the Bible is writing, though, he's not trying to explain to you how electricity works, how to properly drain a city, what is the God-inspired cistern plan. None of those things come up in Scripture. Instead, what you see is God uses the ways of speech to tell us things about himself. And so when God is on the mountain speaking down to Israel, everyone understood the imagery that was being used, that this is the God of the heavens who's come and is interacting with the fallen world. And he shows his power through fire and through earthquakes. Later on with Elijah, he says he's not in those things. He's in the still, small voice. And so God is not limited to the physical. These expressions of power are instead intended to draw your mind beyond the physical.
So is it too much of an overstep to say that every detail in the Bible is to just explain how God is moving or why God is acting in
I think
such
so.
a way?
It's a book about God. And one of the things that I fear messes up many readers is assuming that this is a book about me. And so I am learning about myself, and I'll encounter God along the way.
Right.
Instead, what I think the Bible is it's a book about God, and the closer you draw to him, the more you will learn about yourself. You are an important part of that. You're not unimportant, but it's not about you. But again, our culture is all about us, and we view the Bible kind of as like a recipe book or a self-help book, and then we get frustrated when it's not doing that. So when we talk about imagery, it really goes back to Rose's question about story. Is there a distinction between scientific reality and storytelling? And the answer is yes. Ancient peoples were trying to come up with ways both to explain the world that they saw around them and also to explain metaphysical truths that they were encountering. The crops die, and then in the spring they come back. But humans also die, and we don't come back. There are powers at work around us that we don't understand. And so they came up with stories that they could participate in that became ways of explaining both the physical and the supernatural. Some of those seem weird to us because we know the scientific reality behind them. They had no idea. To them, this was all fair game. Pick anything. It will be as good an illustration as anything else. And so what you're dealing with here is the poetry, the storytelling elements of the Bible where God speaks and reveals things about himself by using the languages of the ancient world. And to use a language, whether it's Hebrew or English or Greek, is to limit what you can say. There are things that cannot be said in certain languages. He is using a human invention to express himself, and he does so beautifully and in ways far greater than the language itself can contain. And so we as readers need to recognize this is a lifelong project. This is not When I was in Bible college, we would study a thing for the quiz or for the test and then immediately flush that information and start packing your brain with the next chapter. And so when exam time came and you're trying to dredge up stuff from the beginning of the semester, man, it was filed way in the back. That's what you had to do, though, to survive the class.
Right.
That's not what I'm doing. The Bible is given to me for all of my life and for the world hereafter to have hidden in my heart to express God revealing himself to me. And so, go ahead, Rez.
Do you think, is there a difference in your mind between symbolism and imagery?
Oh, no, those are kind of fuzzy to me, and I would mush them into one thing. Is there a difference to you?
No, I don't know. I was actually going to ask you guys what you thought the definition, like a working definition of imagery was. It's one of those words where you like kind of know what it is just by context, but if you had to actually write it out, and sometimes Martin and I have to do this. We're like, well, are we talking about the same thing? What do you think it means? And
Usually not.
turns out not so much. Although, fun fact, Martin and I are going to a play together with our spouses at the end of this month. We have made a pact. Martin has to go to a play with me, and I have to go to a sports event with him sometime in 2026.
I did not roll my eyes just now. Don't worry.
I didn't. No one heard them rattling.
Sorry, I forget. Okay, imagery.
I think that's an important question, though. Imagery to me is like using something to set a scene. And so I'm glad you brought that up because the title you have on our outline is Star Imagery. And to me, imagery is just like you're setting the scene. That's pretty much the only way that I can describe it, is you're utilizing things to do that. So you can have a dark and stormy night, or you can have a beautiful meadow scene with a rainbow in the back. And then it tells you what you are to expect from the actors that participate in that scene. And then they close the curtains for a second, you come out, boom, there's other stuff that indicates to you the mood that's happening in that scene. That's how I would describe
That's
imagery.
a really good way to put it. Good job, Martin.
So there's a very famous painting of a tobacco pipe that was painted by, I'm pretty sure the guy is French. The wording on it is French, but it says, "This is not a pipe." And it's designed to discuss the idea of imagery. Is it a painting of a pipe? Yes, but it is not a pipe. It is a painting. And so here you have an example of imagery. There is oil on canvas that is going to make your mind think of a three-dimensional object. You follow me?
I do.
So there is this representation of a reality that is beyond it. No 3D object can be fully encompassed in a painting, no matter how fantastic the painting is. And in another way, no 3D object can express what a painting is, that they can express far more than just a physical object. And so in my mind, this is where imagery comes in. When the Bible uses these things, when it describes God as a rock or a shield or the door, it isn't limiting God. It is expressing a truth about God. And so we don't get to then say, he must be a rock door. It's saying, no, both of these things are true of God in different ways. He is the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through Christ. He also is our shelter in time of storm. He also is our shepherd. He also is our king. He also is, you'd fill in the blank here, because we're describing truths of something that is infinitely greater than the words that we have to describe them. Now, we can come up with statements that are untrue of God, and it is wrong for us to ascribe those things to him. And this is why Scripture describes himself to us and doesn't rely on us to describe him.
So why do you think that we struggle with that with God? You go to the sports world, there's a million accolades that you can give to a player. There's also a million descriptors that you can give to a player. If you're an offensive lineman, you might be like an iron curtain. But nobody thinks that any of those humans are made of iron, and none of them are being hung on your window frame. And so it's easy for us to understand that you're just describing the individual in something that makes sense. Like they're so good at blocking, nothing can get through them, as if the curtain was made of iron. But when we talk about God, we almost then want to label him as the descriptor.
Oh, I'll tell you why I think, and you guys out there in podcast land feel free to disagree, but I think it's because we have a separate category for Bible stuff in our brains. We have like regular life conversation, and then we have like religious-y words, and we don't treat them the same. Most people aren't aware. Well, I say most people, many people, and I was one of them, was not aware that the Bible was allowed to have imagery because I thought of it in my mind as almost a lie. This is a thing that isn't necessarily true, and God wants me to tell the truth, so boom. And I wasn't sure how to deal with this, but I had a category for this in my study of literature and in my study of history and just in my conversations with people. One of my favorite athletes was Refrigerator Perry.
Yeah.
But I knew he wasn't a refrigerator, but he was big as one. And so I had this that existed in my regular life.
Just think of the NIL deal he would have gotten if he was playing today. Just the fridge, like
Huge. But we have these hard lines. You sometimes will notice it when people pray. All of a sudden, they sound like an audible King James version.
Yeah.
They don't talk like that normally, but when we pray, we do because we have this almost like a mental flip that switches on in our heads. Or you can do the opposite, and all of a sudden, you ever hear people pray and they sound like they're 3 or 4 years old? They're using like purposefully relational words, and you're thinking to yourself, you don't talk like that in regular life. Why are you doing that? And I think it has to do more with how we as a culture today think than anything else.
Well, I was thinking about how Jeremy and I were at a Seder dinner this past weekend, like a Passover. And the whole thing is symbolic. And we've done these for years. And so now every time I ever buy parsley, for anything, it flits through my mind to think about that. Or the salt water is like the tears. And so these are symbolic, parts of the plate that you eat and remember something else. And the whole thing together tells a story. So that's pretty easy for symbolism. But then if you think of like a wedding ring, like our wedding rings, they're symbolic of our marriage, but really a ring doesn't have anything to do with a marriage. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I feel like symbolism's a little tricky, and imagery is that just like symbolism 2.0, or is it like adjacent to it?
To me, they're kind of expressions of the same thing, but it could be that I'm mushing things together. I think if you wrote a book about marriage and the cover was that of like a pair of rings, instantly everyone understand this image belongs with this, or like a wedding cake or something like that. We have in our mind, these things go together. They are expressions of one another.
But wouldn't that just be a cultural moment where this is the time that idea exists? I feel like I'm really splitting hairs
No,
now.
I don't think
Sorry.
so. It is a cultural expression. And if God is going to speak to humanity, which he has to do it inside of time. And that means that he is working with a specific culture. And there are things that are unique to those cultures. Even in the Bible, you realize there's a long time, 1,000+ years of time that spread from Genesis to Revelation. And you're dealing with people who grew up speaking different languages, who grew up with different ruling classes and cultures, and all of those things change from beginning to end. And so even though when we dress like Bible characters for like the Nativity, everyone dresses exactly the same, it was way more vibrant and diverse than the caricatures that we make of this.
I think that's why I really liked our intertestamental series that we did. That helped me a lot, bridging from Old Testament to New Testament, the world that they would have immersed themselves in.
It was fun for me. I really enjoyed getting to do the history of it. And this is fun in a different way. I'm describing the stories of people. And so when we go back in time, the oldest known language, written language, is called cuneiform. And they used it for an incredibly long period of time. Even people who didn't speak the language that cuneiform was originally written to express, they used this language. And when you were going to say the name of a deity or a spiritual being, you put a star in front of it. So as far back as we can go in written language, stars are connected to the supernatural world. And this wasn't just true of the Bronze Age. It was also true of Stone Age Britain. Why are they setting up stones to track what's happening in the heavens? Here in Ohio, we have a really cool place called Newark, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which the Adena Indians built this amazing complex. It's so fascinating because it tracks the movement of the moon over massive periods of time. And it was built really fast, and it's massive. It's really a wonderful place. And so when you go there, you're wondering, why did they care where the moon came up and where it went down? What they seem to have been trying to do is to connect themselves to these heavenly bodies, the movement of the heavens. Why did the Babylonians spend so much time tracking the heavens and the movement of the stars? Why were the Mayans? It's ubiquitous in human culture to talk this way and think this way. And so the Bible oftentimes uses star language to tell the story of the supernatural world. It is a thing that is hidden in the day and becomes apparent later. And so there is already this hiddenness and a revelatory aspect of it. But the stars also move in the heavens. They don't stay put. Maybe you've seen like time-lapse videos of the stars. It's really beautiful. But they were watching this happen. They're like, okay, the Big Dipper used to be over there, and now it's, or whatever they called it. The idea, though, is why are they moving? And why are they moving in line? Yeah. Almost as though every one of them has their own appointed path to walk. And so they began to express their belief in the supernatural world with particular lights in the sky. Even today, we in English have named the planets after Roman deities, Mercury and Venus and Jupiter and Saturn. All of those things, those are connected to deities. And so there is a bridge that exists within our culture today to this point. And so when the Bible is talking about stars, your supernatural ears should perk up and you should begin to wonder, I wonder, is he talking about more than just stars? When the moon turns to blood, when the sun is darkened, when stars fall, is there a greater narrative happening here than just God describing a supernatural or rather a physical event that's taking place in the sky? I like stuff that happens in the sky. I like counting satellites as they go by. I really like it whenever whatever his name is, Starlink goes over. I think that's cool. I like watching meteor showers and comets, all that stuff. I'm all about it. But I know that these are physical realities. But I also have in my mind the ability to use the stars to express an idea that is greater than the star. And so just like that painting of a pipe, I have now this idea of this is not a pipe, and this star, even though it is something, becomes more than that because of the presence of story. And this is a story, a way of speaking that God used to talk to us.
I'm thinking of so many examples that are just popping into my head. The best one I can think of is Abraham, when it says your offspring will be like the stars, and people think that means just a numerous amount of them because there's so many you can't count, but there's other implications for that. But then the life of Jesus, when he's born, the star indicates the manger is there, and then when he's crucified, the sun goes away and it's dark for several hours. Like, just think of all the heavenly bodies or these stars and planets that are involved in the story of Jesus and his life. And so it's there's a lot of stuff that's just revamping in my mind just talking about this again. We've talked about some star imagery in our own personal time and I think on the podcast a little bit, but just really putting that together with a lot of these stories that are just popping into my head, it's really making sense again.
Well, that's good. Especially this should go hand in hand with our talks about Elohim. And we reference this a little bit, but what I would like to do is to really dig into some of the passages where you can see star imagery being used. And I'm going to try to give you guys some verses that you can do this on your own. But before we do that, I need to offer an apology. I'm pretty sure I said the Adena Indians, and I have no idea if that is still culturally relevant whenever you hear this. I mean the Native American peoples who I love and respect and would never say anything derogatory. And anyway, so I apologize because I want to. And so I did. But let's go ahead and let's take a look at the book of Job. This is probably the most famous example. And if you only had to pick one, this would be a good one to go to. What we're going to see is that stars are a way of talking not just about the supernatural in general, but of specific supernatural individuals, of beings who have their own personality, their own essence of self, just like I exist as a physical being. and am capable of praising God or rebelling against God. So in the supernatural world, you don't just have generic, random people who don't have their own will and identity, but they exist in numbers just like we do. And so let's look at Job 38, 4 through 7.
Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy.
So right away, you reading this should recognize, is God trying to tell me what the physical world is like? Or is he trying to tell me something about himself? And the answer is given to you by God at the beginning of the sentence. God is kind of calling out Job. And he says, listen, where were you when I made the world? This is what this is about. It's not about how tall the mountains are or how many sands there are. It is about what is the nature of God. And he's going to tell you things that are true. The world does exist and it holds together, and we don't know why. It just does. And Job didn't have great answers for this either. We're talking about things we observe. But in the end of it, he says in verse 7, when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. There are two phrases there, morning stars and sons of God. These are both expressions of supernatural beings that we sometimes call the heavenly host. Anyone who's read Genesis 6, that phrase there, B'nai Elohim, the sons of God, is going to jump right out at you because it's the same thing. It's talking about supernatural beings. But why does Job call them the morning stars? Is there a difference between that and an evening star?
The time.
Okay.
No.
That was a good guess.
What do you think, Russ?
I'm with Martin.
I'm with the church.
Yeah. Morning and evening.
Well, what happens to stars in the morning?
They disappear as the sun comes up.
Yeah, they begin to disappear. And so the morning stars are kind of this way of talking about a great heavenly light that's kind of hidden. It's disappearing. Also, there's this idea of beginning, of joy that is connected to it in a way that evening star doesn't. That's connected to the world is getting darker. So this is a positive element. This isn't God really telling me a whole lot about them, except they're excited. When they saw what God was doing, they respond with music and with excitement. This isn't the description of just a random choir. You know, you picture like God passing out little pamphlets. Here's the lyrics, everyone sing. And then, the choir assembles up on its rafters and everyone's getting organized. They're just singing. This seems to be a part of their being to burst into song. We even have the expression today to sing like an angel. I actually don't know how angels sound when they sing. It could be terrifying. C.S. Lewis has this really great moment where there's an angel who sounds like a waterfall. And just the sound of it is overwhelming to anyone who hears it. And the language is beyond. Yeah, good job. And so we're looking at this and we're saying, man, when Job or when God wants to communicate to Job that when the heavenly host saw the creation of the world, it moved them to worship. But when Job sees the creation of the world, it moves him to nothing because he's so used to seeing it that we just assume it's always been this way and it will always be this way.
But, we do experience this a little bit. If you go on vacation to the mountains or you go to the ocean and there's this a moment of you're awestruck by seeing a sunset or something, you sort of appreciate the creation that is around you. But it's very difficult to go down the same road to the same job every morning and just be like, I'm so glad that God created that field of corn. Like, it's just amazing to us. So it's hard we lose the luster that comes with the creation of the world. But I think that's, again, part of our duty as a Christian is to appreciate what God has created for us.
Yeah, I think there is a God-given obligation to maintain a sense of wonder and of beauty, that just getting the job done and hustling on to the next thing will not enable you to do. So the stars here, the sons of God, they're not helping in any way with creation, but they're excited about it. Mm-hmm. When they see it, they're moved to music. I can't think of help but think of Tolkien's Ino Lindolay in the Silmarillion. If you're really geeky, you should read it. It's a really cool description of this idea of creation connected to music. Even when C.S. Lewis writes The Magician's Nephew, Aslan sings the world into being. And I was rightfully called out last week for criticizing the poetic nature of Midwesterners without taking into account the beauty of music and the poetry that's present in music. You are 100% right. We use music as a way of expressing some of our deepest thoughts. And if I was to say, man, I had such an awesome day, I'm going to write a song about it, everyone would know this must have been the most awesome day, because that's not a normal thing for someone to do who isn't, living in Nashville or something like that.
But it also says the sons of God shouted for joy. And I mean, that's very easy for me to understand, because when your team makes the game-winning play, you don't sit on the couch in silence.
Just in case you're confused about this, when you go to the play and they say the line really well, you don't stand up and shout.
Yeah, it's a good thing you
need to know that.
That's why Martin's going with me and Kristen and Jeremy, because we will guide him in the ways of watching a stage performance.
But once again, like you said, they had nothing to do with the creation, but they were so happy that it happened. Mm-hmm. Same way with me. I had nothing to do with the touchdown, but when it happens, I can appreciate the beauty of the creators.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways,
and
when groups like the Adena, when they were building the Newark Mounds, they're trying to celebrate and participate in this great dance in the heavens that they were seeing. And so they were trying to mirror on the earth what was happening in heaven. It's an act of worship. It's not just dirt piled on top of itself. It's the fact that it is a mode of communication that outlasted their entire civilization. For us, we do this in stories and with words. And I don't know how much of our words will last beyond our civilization. The fact that we're doing this digitally probably means not really going to get very far beyond it, but hopefully it reaches people out there. But there is this desire for the created to participate. Obviously, we cannot participate in the creating, but we want not just to see it, but to enter into contact with the thing. The paganism had this expression. So does the scriptures. The difference is that in paganism, the worship is directed towards self and towards the darkness. Within Christianity, it is to enter into a relationship with God. I break the bread and I eat it, and I drink the wine, and I remember and I celebrate this. I am coming into the story. When a Jewish family celebrates Passover, you'll find they don't use expressions like they'll use expressions like we, because they are part of the exodus out of Egypt. There is this bridge that is built through time by stories and by images, even like using parsley, like you said, is supposed to, every time you're around parsley, stir up that memory inside of you.
I love that idea of bridging the gap through time. That's something that's very hard for us to understand, but I think it is very important. When you look at the life of Jesus and he's talking to some of these individuals who are outcasts, who are sinners, who are, whatever you want to say, bad people, he already knows the cross. He already knows that. So when he's on the cross, it's easy for us to be like, oh yeah, he's dying for the sins of that woman that had the sinful nature. But during that time, he also understood that he died or was going to die for the sins of that woman.
That's right.
And so the understanding of bridging the time, I think, really helps us look at the world so much differently. When you look at the beginning of time to the end of time, the fact that you're alive during that mountain's existence with the sunset going behind it, that's the blessing that you received from the Creator.
Have you lost that sense of wonder in the amazing and the beauty that's around you? There's an expression that says, familiarity breeds contempt. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. When you see something novel and new, it will stop you. But as soon as you've seen it, this happens with books. I already know the ending of this book. Why would I read it again? But there are books that, Rose, you call them heart books. I hear you use that expression sometimes. This is a book that you could read over and over and over again because it's not really
They've just become a
about
part of you.
the story.
And they made you who you are.
Yeah.
A lot of times. I was thinking while Martin was talking about bridging the time, you said something that made me think of this. I feel like I'm in a season in my life where a lot of people are getting married and having children. And like my son is getting married this year, and we're talking about like wedding dresses, speaking of imagery and
Your
symbolism.
son has picked out his wedding
He
dress?
has not, but his beautiful fiance will be choosing one. And I was thinking about how when we went shopping with my daughter for her wedding dress, and then they bring it home and like the grandmas see it and everybody just starts talking about their wedding dresses and when they got them or made them and stuff. And it's this one little thing that brings together generations, you know, and my daughter just had her second baby a few weeks ago. And if you want to get women talking, get them in a room with a baby and the labor and delivery stories just pour out of them. And again, I know they just looked at each other. They're like, do they ever?
I have a lot to say on this topic,
yeah.
none of which I will allow to be
That's
recorded.
fine
Look at the
because
time.
that's kind of fine because I have the microphone. But the point is that it just takes this one thing sometimes for everybody to gather around and it starts the conversation and it bridges generations and people and brings them together. And I think that is what symbolism and imagery and all of those kind of things are meant to do, to pull people together and back to a story.
But the idea of like the stuff losing its luster over time because it was new and shiny and then all of a sudden it's not new anymore. I mean, childbirth, there's been over 8 billion of them in the existence of the world that we know of. And yet the next one is an amazing thing.
Exactly.
Like there is this idea of we can, as human beings, understand the beauty of an event, even if we've seen it over and over and over again. Even the gynecologist goes in there and says, that was another beautiful delivery, and he may have done 12 that day or whatever it is. So like there is an ability for us to have an understanding of creation being beautiful for what it is.
Yeah, I'll tell you a bit of a story. When we had our first son.
Is this a labor and delivery story?
No, this is the moment when like I was well aware of where babies come from. And the idea of okay, this is my DNA, their DNA. Like I could pass a test on how biology works. But then holding the baby and realizing this is a soul, I can't explain that. There is something beyond the physical that is my son. And I remember just it stopping me, and I felt very small and unequipped for the task of raising a child. Thankfully, there are nurses there who will do life for you for a little while. But even then, they were like, all right, that's it. You have to leave now. And I was like, oh, no.
Can you come with me?
What do I do? Like, are you going to come check tomorrow how I'm doing? And they're just like, go with God. You'll figure it out. And thankfully, it was a huge blessing. But to hold a child is to know that the person is more than the sum of its parts. It's not just matter in motion. It is an ensouled being.
Well, and like Martin was saying about there's been 8 billion people today and, it could lose its luster, but we agree that it doesn't. And that is actually true of the stars. I'm trying to remember, John, you'll probably know. One of an author said that if it was an event that only happened one time, that all of these stars came out, everybody would show up for it. But since we see that, is it Chesterton that says something about this? But since we see them every night, they do tend to, the majesty of them and like the beauty could tend to lose its luster if you let it.
But if you're around people who've come out of like a big city and they're around the night sky, it's interesting to watch them because all of a sudden they're like, whoa, that's massive. And even people who live in the countryside, when they're in a really dark place and they see like the Milky Way and things pop out, it is spectacular. Go ahead, Martin. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just going to mention that because when we lived in Troy, which is the great metropolis that it is, we couldn't really see the stars. And now we live on the north end of Covington, and it's much darker up here. Only one traffic light on the corner, or one street light on the corner.
But a lot of stop signs.
Yeah, but when we first moved in and it was a clear night, I looked up and I thought, man, look at all those stars. Like it made me stop. And just the other night, we're coming home from Kristen's parents, and it was a nice evening in the 50s, and I looked up and I'm like, there's the Milky Way. Like this, it's apropos that we're doing this podcast now because in the last week I've just noticed the stars. It's come into springtime, so it's a little bit easier to see them as well. But it was just like, man, this is cool living where I'm at because I have the ability to see this. So
Jesus actually tells us to do similar things. He says, go and look at the birds. They neither sow nor reap, but they have enough. Look at the lily. He actually intends us to not just live in the world, but to engage with and to wonder at the creation itself. It does declare the glory of God. And so the Bible uses star imagery to talk about individual spiritual beings. Isaiah 14:12 through 13. I'm going to go kind of fast here because we've had fun. It talks about, when it talks about Satan, it calls him, how are you fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn? And this is, I will ascend into heaven above the stars of God. It's describing there the motives of this original rebel. He's not saying like, I just really want to travel far out there. He's talking about his rank in the terms of the other spiritual beings. Where do I go? I go at the top. And he's using language that an ancient person reading the book of Isaiah would have understood, the highest star, the highest heights. In the book of Revelation, chapter 9, it says there's an angel who blows his trumpet, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to earth. And you think, oh, man, that would be really bad, because if a star hit the earth...
Pretty sure that's what got the dinosaurs.
Well, I mean, that was just a comet or whatever, meteor. If a star came into our area, we're going to be burned up. So this is not just saying, okay, the scientific thing, a star. But look at what it says. It says, and he was given the key to the shaft of the bottomless pit. That's a really dumb thing to do to an inanimate object. Here you go, star, have this key, which also may or may not be an actual physical thing. It's a way of describing ideas that are far greater than the sum of their parts. The idea of star imagery oftentimes is described with an expression that we call the host of heaven or the heavenly host. And this comes about because of armies. Armies march in line, in step. They move as a unit. And when ancient peoples looked up in the sky, they saw the stars doing the same thing. They didn't speed up and slow down. They didn't go quicker on Tuesdays and slower on Mondays. They move at a steady pace, and there's lots of them. There was this idea of a vast array of lights in the sky, and they talk about it in terms of a host or ranks. And so the Bible will often call God the Lord of hosts, that this is his rule, is to extend over his creation. Let's look at Nehemiah chapter 9 and verse 6.
You are the Lord, you alone. You have made heaven, the heaven of heavens, with all their host, the earth and all that is on it, the seas and all that is in them, and you preserve all of them, and the host of heaven worships you.
This is not talking about Saturn and Jupiter. They're planets, right? Obviously, it's talking about stars, right? So like Betelgeuse and those kinds of... No, it's talking about the supernatural host. The spiritual world has an obligation to honor God as king, as Lord. That's what the rebellion is about. There are beings, people, if you want to use that word, supernatural persons who have stopped doing that. Here in the physical world, we are the same. There are those of us, though, who have chosen to cease to stand in the darkness and to stand in the light. When I do baptisms, one of the questions that I ask is, do you renounce the darkness? Are you claiming Christ? Are you wanting to stand with him? Because that's part of what we're doing. We are disavowing the rebellion, and we are seeking to stand with the Lord, because as Nehemiah says, you made it. You made the heaven of heavens and all their host. This is the way the Bible chooses to speak, that God locked these words in place. Could he have done it differently? Yeah, he could have done anything that he wanted to, but he chose to do it this way. And so as a Bible reader, I tuck that fact away. When I see phrases like heavenly host, instantly I think of the rebellion, of the armed resistance against God, and the armed overthrow of the enemy that's coming in the book of Revelation. This is a word, host, that stirs up military vibes, that stirs up the idea of strength.
Just make sure I'm not hearing you incorrectly. When you hear the host of heaven, you automatically think of the rebellious?
Yes, typically the phrase, the idea that there is a host is implying that there is someone to wield a host against.
Well, I'm just thinking of when the shepherds are in their field by night and the angel appears and then a whole heavenly hosts appear around them. Those weren't rebels. Those were...
That's right. But why are they there?
To fight. I mean,
I think there's a very real sense in which the enemy is resisting what is happening. I think if you had seen into the supernatural world at the birth of Jesus, it would have been rather spectacular.
Sure.
And those beings seem to just erupt out of nowhere. But the Bible oftentimes, not always like you're pointing out, but oftentimes uses heavenly host to refer to idolatry, to people who are worshiping the stars in the sky, who are worshiping these things. And so immediately, because I've seen it often enough, I look for it. If it's there, I expect it. If it's not there, like in the Bethlehem story, what you're doing is you're drawing attention to something good, overpowering the evil thing, even to the extent that you didn't even name it. Like when you read the book of Exodus, Pharaoh's name is not given. He is stripped of his name. When Jonathan climbs the slopes at Michmash and his armor bearer goes up with him, the armor bearer is not named because it draws attention to the hero of the story. And so there are reasons for this, but let me show you a couple of them. Let's look at 2 Chronicles 18 through 22.
And Micaiah said, Therefore, hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing on his right hand and on his left. And the Lord said, Who will entice Ahab, the king of Israel, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said one thing, and another said another. Then a spirit came forward and stood before the Lord, saying, I will entice him. And the Lord said to him, By what means? And he said, I will go out, and will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, You are to entice him, and you shall succeed. Go out and do so. Now therefore, behold, the Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouth of these your prophets. The Lord has declared disaster concerning you.
All right, so there you have God, the divine court is described, and it calls them the host of heaven. But the framework for the use of this word is a battle scene. Ahab is going to go up and die. The phrase heavenly host can be used just to mean glory. Look at the attendance of the great king, his rank upon rank. You see this in the book of Genesis when it talks about God created the heavens and the earth and all their host. And so the phrase doesn't have a one-to-one connection to the battle. But oftentimes when you see the phrase, there is battle language locked into it because we are living in the front lines of this. This is a book that is about God to a people who are living in a world that is being claimed by God and counterclaimed by Satan. There is a battle taking place.
Question. The host that's in rebellion, do you believe that they just reject God Almighty as the highest, or that they hate that he is?
I think it's probably both. And to a certain extent, I think it is many of them. I don't know how they fell or when they fell or how often, but there is a description that seems to be the moment where they decide to define right and wrong for themselves. And I think there are differing degrees of this. I have a lot of guesses about this. The Bible describes 3 falls of angelic beings. Michael Heiser gives you tremendous information about this. You should go read his thoughts on this. But in the end, Rose, I don't know. It doesn't seem that they have mild emotions about the Lord Most High. It seems as though they are drastically committed to maintaining whatever power they can.
It seems as though it's, and I know this is a bit, meta, but there's a difference between not believing that God exists and knowing that he does and rejecting him. And it seems to me, though, when they were created originally before any kind of rebellion, they would have, aligned themselves under him. But then when the rebellion happened, were they rejecting his kingship and headship, or were they just, so they were, but it didn't play out well. And they certainly had to notice at some point that he was still God Most High.
Yeah. So we often use it in the expression of, do I believe in God or not? The angels, even the demons believe and tremble.
And when Jesus came, they're like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, they're not doubting the existence of God. What they're doing is they're claiming something that belongs to him.
So
and they know there are going to be repercussions, but that won't stop them from wanting it. I mean, every sinner listening to this, myself included, should be able to relate to this pretty easily.
That's essentially what a rebellion is.
That's exactly what it is.
Well, I just think of your own children, like, when they're young and whatever.
No, I'm just going to think of your children. Mine are.
You can think of my child because I know how it goes.
We call Matthew the bull because he lowers his head and like charges at you. My kids are mean,
but
I love them.
If you think of your own child, like, they know that you're the parent. They know you exist. But at some point, they're going to try to take authority over you. And they're going to say, like, okay, I understand what you want me to do, but this is what we should do. And they're going to do their own thing. It's different because the heavenly hosts, I don't believe, were created as babies where, God was up there changing diapers and whatever. They were built in the intelligence of a full-grown adult would be now.
Right.
So, yeah, when they're created, this is existence. Okay, we get it. At some point in their mind, they had a doubt or a fear or an anxiety or something. Maybe they have emotions, maybe they don't. But something sparked in their mind of like, God is an all-loving God, right? So if I do the wrong thing, what's he going to do? Like, he loves me, right? And whatever. Or, there's a million temptations that you could say, the same way that you're tempted to sin in a million different ways today.
Yeah,
so
there are a lot of attempts to describe what you're talking about in the ancient literature. The book of Enoch in particular gives a really interesting vibe. I need you guys all to sign on the dotted line that we're all going to do this because I'm afraid you're going to back out.
Sure.
And so like we as humans have always wondered, we want more of that story. But the Bible gives us just enough to know that it is, and not enough to know. And this is one of those moments where our words fail us.
Well, I think the easiest way for me to understand it is that the human beings, we're born into a sin nature. So we have this inert ability to just fall directly into sin as a comfort net. Were the spiritual beings created with that same nature? I would venture to say no. So when they are created, they know they don't just know, they are designed to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And so when they say, no, I'm going to do something else, that is a choice that they are making.
Absolutely.
They can't just say, oops, I accidentally fell into this.
Yeah,
the way
that
we
knoweth
do.
to do good and doeth it not.
But
to
as
him it is
a
sin.
human being, if we do nothing, I think we fall victim of the sin, because that's just how our sin nature is. That's how the darkness is pulling us. But with the created heavenly beings, their nature is to follow God. Like, they are automatically drawn into a relationship with God. So for them to drift away from him, they have to actively do it.
Yeah, and the only place that we are actually shown it is in Adam and Eve. And that's because I'm never going to be an angel. When I die, I'm not going to become an angel. I'm going to stay a human being. But the only story that is revealed to us is our own. Do we have intense curiosity about more? Yeah. Do we get hints at it? Also, yes, but never enough to actually like write the compendium that's like, aha, here it is. Let me show you another one. This one's from Isaiah 24, 21 through 23.
On that day, the Lord will punish the hosts of heaven in heaven.
Okay, stop. God will punish who?
The hosts of heaven.
Where?
In heaven.
Oh, this doesn't fit most people's framework of how we talk about things. Bad things go to hell. Good things go to heaven. Nothing bad is allowed in heaven unless you use the word heaven the way that the ancient peoples do, in the supernatural realm. In the realm, these beings exist, and they are rebelling against God. It's not like there's a country club in the spiritual world that is like God's country club, and only the card-carrying members are allowed in. We get elements, for instance, in Zechariah, where there is a Satan who is condemning the high priest. He is trying to destroy this man. There is a far greater world than what our, I use the flannel graph version of this story allows. He's going to punish the host of heaven. So here, the host of heaven is intricately connected to that rebellion. Keep reading.
So you could read that as the Lord will punish the supernatural beings in the supernatural realm. Is that what
You could, or you could use it to describe it in terms of the heaven of heavens, the realm where God made these beings to walk in his presence, just like God made Adam and Eve to walk in his presence in the Garden of Eden. And when we fell into sin, God removes us from that sin. So there's all kinds of complicated assumptions that you can make from this, none of which you're going to be given enough information in the Bible to definitely back up. You just have to say, I have some intriguing ideas about this. It should draw you deeper into your wonder. Keep going.
And in contrast, in the kings of the earth on the earth.
So there again, in the heavens, in the spirit world, and in the physical world. Keep going.
They will be gathered together as prisoners in a pit, and they will be shut up in a prison, and after many days they will be punished. Then the moon will be confounded and the sun ashamed, for the Lord of hosts reigns on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, and his glory will be before his elders.
What did the moon do? Like, why is the sun ashamed? What did it do? I mean, it's just doing what God made it to do, unless this is talking about more than the actual physical things in the sky. So when the Bible uses language like this, it's a flag that ought to pop up in the text that says there may be a supernatural connection that's leading me beyond the literal physical embodiment of this thing, that is instead a way of communicating. And God can use the physical to teach us about the spiritual. One of my favorite instances of this is where God makes the sun stand still for Moses when they're fighting. And so long as the sun is up, they're winning. And there's this connection. The supernatural event is taking place, but it's being communicated using a physical means of creation itself. And so creation becomes a way of telling stories. It can actually happen, or it can be symbolically occurring. Both of them are options for God. He can do anything he likes, whenever he likes, however he likes, because he is the Lord of hosts. Let's turn our eyes now. We're out of time. I don't care. If you don't like it, you can pause the podcast. I'm running out of words.
And then push play.
And push play
following
later.
week.
Yes, let me tell you some more. Let's look at Joel chapter 2, verses 10 through 11.
The earth quakes before them, and the heavens tremble. The sun and the moon are darkened, and the stars withdraw their shining. The Lord utters his voice before his army, for his camp is exceedingly great. He who execute his word is powerful, for the day of the Lord is great and very awesome. Who can endure it?
This is not describing the physical. It's doing more than that. It's describing the Lord of hosts. These things are his host. The earth is quaking. The heavens are dimming. Why? Because the Lord of hosts is present. Look at 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 19.
And we have the prophetic word more fully confirmed, to which you will do well to pay attention, as to a lamp shining in a dark place, until the day dawns and the morning star rises in your hearts.
So this is the New Testament. This is Peter. How does he describe the presence of God within me? As the star, the morning star rising in my heart. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what he's talking about. Instead, you should notice, wow, you're being very poetic, Peter. This is a beautiful way of describing the dawn as pushing back the darkness. He's talking about Jesus. He's talking about your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Let me show you one last one.
True Midwestern fashion.
I was going to say I identify deeply with Peter and his poetic nature as a Midwesterner.
I said I was sorry. I apologize to the Adena Indians who have been gone for the Adena Native Americans. I'm going to have to edit all this out.
I was waving the
I'm trying
Midwestern
not to
flag.
be.
I was waving the Midwestern flag the hardest last
I'm
week,
sorry.
and I stay with
I'm
it.
doing better. Okay, let's look at Revelation 22:16.
I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify to you about these things for the churches. I am the root and the descendant of David, the bright morning star.
This is how Jesus describes himself, because Jesus is the God of gods, the Lord of lords, mighty and awesome.